Hey, this is Rob from the garage again. Welcome back. Today I want to talk about something pretty simple. Let's talk about the 5-pin chute. On the older A machines like mine here, which is a 3000 serial number pin setter, there's 11 bolts holding on that 5-pin chute on the turret. The newer ones only have about 6. And the bolts are only about 1/8 of an inch wide, so that's pretty thin. And if any of the bolts come loose, that whole metal 5-pin chute can start moving around, and what that does is starts eating around the head of that bolt on the shank, and eventually it's going to thin it out more and more, and eventually the head's going to pop off of there, and you're not going to have any bolts holding that 5-pin chute on anymore. And so what you want to do is get in and check them, make sure they're tight, but don't over tighten them because they're really small and the heads can snap off pretty easy. Make sure you got the proper hardware on there with the lock washer on there. Make sure they're tight. Make sure you're not missing any. You could be missing a few and get away with it as long as the other ones are tight. But at some point, you're going to want to pull that 5-pin chute off. You're going to want to try to get an easy out or some way to get in there and extract broken off bolts from your turret ring where the 5-pin chute actually mounts on there. So just get in there. Let's look a little closer at mine. I'll show you the fact that I've got 11 on mine, but the newer ones, you're only going to see 6. So let's take a look at them a little closer. It might save you a lot of headache later on during league if that 5-pin gets too loose because your interlock probe actually pivots and is mounted on that. And if for some reason it gets loose and shifts or something, your interlock probe might not function properly. Could lead to having a few pin setter calls, but you definitely don't want to have that 5-pin chute just break off during league with you got all your bolts broken off. There's no way to reattach it, and you're going to piss off a lot of bowlers. Take a look at them real close. Correct any deficiencies that you do find. Okay, if you look at the turret right here, here are the bolts I'm talking about. These are the 11 that I've got in mine. As I say, the newer ones are only going to have 6. You want to make sure, go down there and check them, make sure they're tight, make sure none of them are loose. I'm getting into mine right here, and I've noticed I'm missing a bolt right here in my first hole, so I'm going to want to go back, replace that. If it's broken off, I'm going to have to pull the whole thing off, try to get that one out of there. But it'd be a good practice if you have the time and the patience to do it. Go ahead and replace one if they're broken off, but at least get new hardware in there. Make sure the other ones are tight. As I say, if these bolts are loose and this whole thing's allowed to move around, it's going to slowly erode the shank of that little bolt around the head of that thing, and eventually it's just going to pop off. Also, while you're checking out your 5-pin chute, check in this area right here. These have a tendency over time to crack because when the pin falls in and it can't go into the turret, the head of it's going to hit up here on this top part, and these do break out over time. If so, you can get that welded early on before it gets too bad. Otherwise, you're going to be missing a chunk of that, and it's going to start scarring your pins up, leaving a big mark. Also, while you're in checking your 5-pin chute, check this section of your 5-pin chute itself as well, because this also has a tendency to crack over time, and eventually if it cracks enough, the pin will hang up on the broken piece in there, and then you're going to start having 180 stops where your 5-pin goes in the chute, doesn't follow all the way through. Plus, if it's broken, again, that will start scarring up your pins, going to leave some ugly marks in your pins. They'll never go away. So you want to make sure, look around here, make sure this isn't cracked. But if you can get a good welder, they can fix these before it gets worse than it already is. Never a bad idea while you're up checking things around your turret. Look at what I got here. I'm missing a cap off of one of my turret wires that came off. Didn't know that was missing. Also, I got my broken turret wire over here on my 10-pin. So I need to get that. Probably get the other piece, get it welded, or replace the turret wire. Usually around the shaker, you're going to find these pieces. That's about the only place they're going to be. If not, they end up here in the cross conveyor down in this area. A lot of times the things fall off the pin setter while they're running. They get in the pinwheel, they'll find their way up here and end up in the cross conveyor on one side or right here in this area. So if you're ever missing anything, look here. Well, that wraps it up for checking your 5-pin chute. I know it sounds pretty minor, something you never think about, but a lot of times those little things that you don't are the ones that are going to bite you in the end. So get in there, check all your hardware, check your 5-pin chute, make sure everything looks good. Take care of it before you got bowlers on the lanes. Bowlers will appreciate it, so will the owners, the managers, and you. While you can prop your feet up, enjoy a quiet night in the back, hopefully, while your machines run, and leave you alone. Thanks for watching. Check out all our videos in the pin setter maintenance library. Also, check back on the BPAA Maintenance Minute Vimeo website for all the other videos we're going to be putting out. And as always, cut those strings, save these free fall pin setters.